Welcome, everyone. I'm Tara, a patient program manager for the Neuromuscular Disease Foundation. And today, for our speaker series, we'll hear from Kam, our guest speaker. I think most of you may have either met Kam or know of Kam. She's pretty famous in our world. Kam is a true artist in many mediums. She's an industrial artist, a prolific writer, a traveler, and I would say a gourmet chef as well. I've tasted her cooking. I met Kam almost 12 years ago. She was the second GNEM person besides my siblings I met when I first got diagnosed with GNE myopathy. I must say that Kam's talents, intellect, and creative force are beyond limits. Because the Neuromuscular Disease Foundation is receptive to the ever-changing needs of people living with neuromuscular condition, like GNEM, we want our community to feel loved and empowered. Although we may be physically challenged, we still have desires and the need to feel intimate, just like everyone else. So we are very pleased to present the topic LOVEAble by Kam. Please join us for a casual conversation on intimacy, companionship, and love with Kam. Let's give Kam a warm welcome.
Hello, thank you, Tara, for that introduction. And thanks to NDF for inviting me back. I actually did this discussion back in May, and it's a topic that is just really important to me while people are waiting for treatment. I know there's other disabilities in this session besides GNA myopathy, but I have GNEM. And I thought it would just be, like before, more casual about it. I think this is an important subject, but something that maybe people feel shy about talking about or asking questions. So I just wanted to keep it more casual and less of a PowerPoint. And I'll start with my story, my backstory, for those who don't know it. I have GNE myopathy, which is a very rare muscle debilitating condition, a form of muscular dystrophy, and it's pretty rare. I thought it started around in my early 20s, but in hindsight now I realize it started probably when I was 16 or 17. As I was a soccer player and I played soccer throughout high school, but I realized there was like these things happening to me, which at the time I was blaming myself, but it was really this mysterious disease I didn't even know I had, even though I was born with it because it's genetic. It didn't really begin expressing itself until 17, and then I began noticing in the early 20s. And in that period of time, it's kind of a similar story to a lot of patients with rare diseases, and definitely for those who have GNE myopathy, especially this long ago, when patients weren't even really in contact. So I started going to a lot of doctors. My doctors didn't believe me. And I just realized that I would have to be my own best advocate. And I started basically planning my own route throughout the medical paradigm system of figuring out what was wrong. And about my sixth diagnosis, they diagnosed me Mayo Clinic with GNE myopathy. And even at the time, I wasn't really sure if that's what I had, because I'd already had 6 diagnoses or 5 diagnoses that it didn't end up being. So that's my dog in the back. So I just kind of continued. At the time I was going through college of creative studies, and I just continued to try to finish my degree, especially knowing that I had this mysterious condition that I was being told was going to progress. And when I was going to doctors and when I went back to my regular doctors and let them know I finally got a diagnosis, most of them said that, oh yeah, I have heard of that. It's extremely rare. You'll probably never meet another patient like yourself because it's that rare. And you'll definitely never see treatment being developed or any interest in it because it's so rare. And so, what do you do with that kind of information? So for me, I was just focused on finishing school, and they told me to go to college, and that definitely wasn't going to happen. It was really important for me to finish that, especially knowing I was going to be disabled potentially for my whole life. And then years later, I ended up moving to California on a whim because I wanted to look for work, and that's where a lot of the industrial design community work was in California. And I moved out here, and then just by chance, I was working for Mattel, I think at the time, and I just Googled my disease, which at the time was called HIBM. Today it's called GNE myopathy. And for some reason, I had done this like lots of times before, and for some reason it just popped up where information had popped up about 2 patients. And so these 2 patients were the first patients I met. They were 2 brothers. You've probably heard of them, the Darvish brothers. And so I had never done any advocacy work or anything, but I kind of just hopped in right away and started doing design work, not disability, but GNE myopathy awareness and grassroots projects to fundraise. And I did a lot of, with the organization, creative branding and stuff like that. So I did that for a few years. And in the course, I had progressed a lot. And I realized I was losing my hands, and I had started doing art that was inspired by GNE myopathy and writing, because I thought people are inundated with diseases and nonprofits all the time. So I think a lot of it just goes over people's head. And I think what people really want to know is more personal stories. So that's how I began writing and doing art. Was I just really wanted to communicate what this experience was like, so people understood the gravity of it, but not just like from a sad perspective, but more of the humanity of us, that we're still humans as we all go through trials and tribulations. So I had kind of like backed out of the nonprofit sector and decided I would become more of an independent advocate, so I could focus on my art and do a children's book that I've been working on and things like that before my hands are completely, I'm not able to draw anymore. And it was in that time that I really began exploring what this experience meant. And while definitely not here to invalidate the experience and the difficulty of my fellow GNE myopathy patients and any other disabilities that are in here, a progressive condition is very unique, because you're constantly having to nail a moving target. You have to constantly adapt. You have to adjust yourself emotionally and physically of all these changes that are happening to your body. And then you're not even just doing that in terms of trying to go through the experience and the emotional experience and the personal experience of your body progressing and debilitating further, is you're also dealing with a lot of outside noise. And of course, I didn't really know what this was until I learned about ableism. And it made perfect sense when you realize, if you just change your thinking just a little bit, and you look from a different lens, and you're oh, yes, while this experience would be difficult for me, the person who's experiencing the disease, so a lot of the difficulty is also placed on us by society and how we view ourselves. And maybe we think, I'm sure in the beginning stages, I thought I was really focused on my schooling, but I'm sure I went through a lot of thinking am I going to be able to date? Is anyone going to be interested? Can I have an intimate relationship? No one's going to want someone who's disabled. And so I think this is very common for a lot of people to go through. And as I began learning about it, it just really irritated me in a way of it's not my problem that I feel this way. It's everyone else's problem. In terms of feeling like you don't belong in a society, and that adding to the gravity of your disease, and that I can't even be a normal person in society anymore. That's how you feel. And when you realize it's because people have placed misconceptions on disability, that I'm sure a lot of people who have disabled people who have partners, they receive a lot of looks in public, and my husband Jason will receive a lot of congratulations and wow, you're amazing, you're with her. And I think people mean well, but they don't understand how that really comes off to you. If you think about a non-disabled couple, for example, and I went up to them and said to only one partner and said, wow, good for you for being with that one. It doesn't come off well. So all these little things contribute to how you feel as a person, and it contributes to how you live as a person, or how you think you can live as a person. For me, knowing that this was just progressive, and that I would only have so much time with whatever physicality I have today, or in a week, or in a year, that has been one of my greatest motivations to live my life as much as possible. And so one of the things I tell a lot of disabled people, especially people with a progressive condition, is you just have to keep your eye on the prize. What is most important to you? Traveling is really important for me, for example. Intimacy is really important to me. So I didn't feel like I had to lose these things just because I became disabled or I'm progressing. But it's difficult. Like, how do you present yourself to the world or to a partner that you might feel like inferior to, or that they might be judging what you can and can't do? And a lot of that, I think, starts with you. I think there's society, in that we have to combat a lot of these misconceptions, or people thinking that we can't do anything, or we can't do a job, or, oh, if someone loves you, it must be because of altruistic reasons. That person is, views you as a charity, they're being nice to you. And it must be at some kind of sacrifice. It can't be that who you are as a person, minus anything that's physical. So I just realized that it was really important that once you kind of, torque your thinking a little bit and think of something, kind of see yourself through a new lens, you realize there's a lot you can do. And again, the progressive aspect is difficult, but you have to also focus on what you can do with what you have today. So, for me, when I dated through all stages of this disease, or I had partner or dated or had intimate relationships. And I remember, like, in the beginning, hiding my leg braces. Like, back then, they're way better today than they were back then. They're just like these big old milky white casted plastic braces, very unattractive. So I would wear pants all the time. I never wore dresses because I didn't want anyone to see them. And I had a cane. But these things I would try to hide as much as possible. Like, when I was driving, if I pulled up to a restaurant or a store and I noticed there was a cute guy next to me in a car pulling up, I would wait till he got out of his car and went in, because the way I got out of the car, well, seemingly that's not attractive. I'm kind of limping. I have to really maneuver my whole body to get out of this car. And you just focus on how you look while you're doing it, or how you walk. And I found, I bet you a lot of, speaking to my GNE patients right now, we have a very special gait or walk when we walk. And I know a lot of us probably were self-conscious about that. I didn't even take pictures barely with, I would hide my cane behind my leg whenever I took pictures. And then when you're with friends or with people or interviews and you have to walk in front of them, it's like, you just feel so embarrassed. And there's this aspect of you that's trying to hide that in a way, while also simultaneously trying to be cool inside and watching everything so you don't trip and all these aspects. So I just remember hiding my disability as much as I could. But when I went into a wheelchair, it just became something that you really can't hide. So you most definitely have to work on self-acceptance at the time. My husband, his name is Jason. We actually met in art design college. I went to CCS. It's an industrial design and art college in Detroit. And that's where we met. He was actually kind of liked me back then, but I was kind of focused more on my studies. And we didn't end up dating until I moved to California. I just happened to move to California. He had already been here for a job, and he offered me a place to stay with him and his roommate. And that's how we started dating. And it was similar, where you're kind of okay, you have to change, you have to hide this stuff about you. You have to hide that you have a funny walk. You have to hide all this. But after a while, it just becomes really tiring having to hide who you are. And after I started learning ableism about a few years ago, that even catapulted even more your self-acceptance, because you realize well, in a way, you have a job to do of breaking all these myths that say you can't do these things, or you can't be in a relationship, or if you are, it's only because they pity you, or this or that. So I think for me, while a lot of us are certainly hoping and waiting for treatment, I think almost equally as important is learning self-acceptance and seeing yourself for who you are without the disability. And for us, we were all non-disabled before GNE started happening. So we get this diorama of seeing ourselves who we were, and then seeing ourselves today with a physical progression. And it's very easy to focus on that. And I think in focusing on that, for example, when you're dating or when you're with your partner in an intimate relationship, I think a lot of times what you project is also sometimes what you receive. So if you're projecting a lot of insecurity and feeling like you're not worthwhile, or being extra, careful when you're in intimacy, or you don't want them to see you, or all your mind is focused on the aspect of how do I hide this, instead of just accepting it and being like, you know what, it is what it is. At the end of the day, I want to travel, or at the end of the day, I want to have intimacy in a partner. I don't want that to be, shaded incorrectly by how I feel about myself, because it's something that I can't even control. So for me, it's like that eye on the prize thing, just keeping focused on what you really want in life. And for relationships, for my husband and I, which he'll come talk in a little bit and share his perspective from a non-disabled partner. I think it's easy for us disabled to feel like a burden, that we're not, we're only objects of care. We're not objects of intimacy. We're not viewed by society as much as society usually views disabled people as asexual, like, oh, they can't possibly have any brain space to think about sex or think about relationships, or it's something that we don't desire. And so that's why I like to share about this topic a lot, because it's just such a weird stigma or misconception about disabled, that we aren't sexually active, or we can't be sexually active, or we can't be contributing in that way. So I think that helps a lot with the relationships once you remove that. And when you go into, I think for disabled, we become not even disabled, non-disabled as well. We become fixated on what something should look like. So what a couple should look like, what sex should look like, what intimacy should look like. And now we can think of as well, I don't look like that. But I think one of the first things we have to do is you have to wipe your mind of any imagery or perception of what you think something should look like, and just make it about you, whatever you do, however you live your life, or communicate, or whatever, that have your relationships, that should be about how it is focused and tailored to your life, not about how it looks for everyone else. So one of the things I hear a lot about with intimacy is, of course, people are insecure, especially the more progressed you get. You can't move your legs, you can't move your arms, you can't. For me, I'm unable to lift my arms anymore, and I need help with feeding now, eating my meals and stuff. So how do you have any confidence based on the aspect that you feel like you're not contributing, and you feel like you're not physically able to do things that you used to do? And I think one of the things, like I said, it's about wiping your mind of what you think things should look like. And so, we think people with wheelchairs or canes, you can't be sexy, and that's not true at all. I think it's mostly about attitude and how you come off. And before we can expect anyone else to accept us, we have to accept ourselves. And so I think it's really about like projecting. It's a little bit of like fake it till you make it. And that's not meant to be deceptive or anything. A lot of us, you have to project confidence, or you have to project confidence. And I think the more you do that, the more you convince yourself that, yeah, I am. And you know what, this disability is not a big deal. And I realized, you know what, this person doesn't actually have any issues with it. Maybe it was just me that was having more issues with my body. And so why I think it's so important to have that acceptance, and to, number one, have communication with your partner, is because it removes a lot of expectations for both partners of how you think things should look like, or how you think you don't look like, or you're not doing this or that. One of the things I realized is, even for non-disabled couples, very rarely do people actually talk about sex, or what they like, or what they don't like. And if you think about it, for non-disabled, every partner is different. So even when you're a non-disabled couple, you have to communicate what you want, what your wants and needs are. And I think a lot of people are very shy to communicate that. For me, I'm an open book. Jason, my husband, is not much of a communicator, but I am. And for me, I'm very open about sharing how I'm feeling, what I like, what I don't like. When it comes to intimacy and stuff like that, I think communication is extremely important, but it's even more important if you're disabled, because most definitely you might be, for a lot of people, the first disabled person that they may be intimate with or have dated. So you are you know, the informant for them in terms of informing them, you know, how you're feeling, emotionally feeling, what your body can do or can't do, what you like or can't or don't like. A lot of people think that just because you're disabled, you have no sensation. I've heard a lot of men actually said, oh, I actually knew a disabled girl in my class. And I was really interested in her, but I didn't think she could have sex. So that was like a huge thing that, you know, and that may sound shallow, but that's something that people have to consider. Like they just assume that we can't have sex. And so I've done a lot of like educating of like disability is such a varied landscape, and everyone is different. Some people don't have sensation, but even people who don't have sensation can still be sexually active. I know there's a spinal cord injury patient, male patient, who he couldn't feel anything, but if you could arouse his by stroking his finger, you could basically stimulate the same kind of arousal just by stimulating another area. And that's when I realized, like, well, your biggest sex organ is your brain. And so a lot of us think, well, because we've lost our physicality, we just can't participate or be engaged or, you know, satisfy someone else or be intimate with someone else. And I think that's just not true. I think so much of it is based on your attitude. And I found that a lot of partners want their partner to have a good time and be present. And the only way you can really do that is communicate your needs. And especially when you're disabled, for us, we need a lot more assistance, and we need, you know, for me, I need help with my legs, obviously, and things like that. So I just found that communication is the number one important thing for any couple, and definitely interabled couples, because your partner doesn't know where you need help. He or she may not know where you're feeling insecure. And so I just think that that's just my number one, you know, advice, is to talk about these things and not be shy about them, because like I said, it's not because of you and you're disabled. Every partner, you don't know what your partner likes or what they need. So the number one way to bypass that is communicate your needs and wants, and not to be shy about it. Adaptive sex is, a lot of people just think that sex has to look one way. And again, it's about keeping focus on what's really important to you. If maintaining an intimate relationship with the partner is important, then you have to get creative, view adaptation as creativity. And as something like that's fun, not cumbersome, because, you know, it is different. You need help moving from different areas or different positions. For us, you just have to really view it as more as an opportunity to be creative. And you may have what I call like intermissions, where you have like areas of, you have to like have your partner move you or transition or things like that. And yeah, traditionally we might not view that as very sexy, but I think there's a lot of elements where you have to have a sense of humor about sex and intimacy in general, because if you think about it, disabled or not, it's just kind of a funny looking thing. And it's just, you just have to look at it as not take yourself so seriously, and not that it has to be a certain way, and not that you have to like, you know, writhe and jump from chandeliers and do all this stuff that requires physicality. Because in reality, what is really most important, I think, to a lot of partners is being present. And only by being present can you really enjoy the experience. And when you're enjoying the experience, I found most partners, including my husband, says that's what they enjoy. They don't want someone that is always in their heads thinking about, oh, do I look bad this angle, or oh, is this showing, or is my disability really obvious the way I'm like moving or, you know, transitioning. And these are just kind of things that you just can't control. So for me, I've just practiced a philosophy of letting go. And letting go is a great rule for just life in general, but letting go is definitely a great rule for when you're being intimate or engaging in a sexual relationship, because the more you let go, one, the more you enjoy yourself, and the more your partner enjoys yourself, because they can't read all your insecurities, all the things that are going through your mind. And in reality, I'm pretty much betting if they're with you, they find you attractive, they like you. So a lot of your insecurities are more coming from you and in your mind space than they are. And a lot of people forget that the brain is the largest sex organ. It's not all these other parts. It actually, you know, arousal and interest and being in the moment all comes from your brain and how you're stimulating the brain first, and then the brain tells the body to react. So, for me, I would just say like sex is really all in the mind. And if you can focus on really being present, not taking yourself too seriously, and seeing adaptation as a creative opportunity to be fun and figure out what things that you guys like or what kind of things that you would like to try more, I think it's just really important. For disability, I think sex is can be more. Oh, I need to share my screen. Sorry. For example, these are like straps. The bottom one is a thigh strap. So because, for example, if you're laying on your back and you're being intimate, for example, your legs kind of flare around, so it's hard to control. So the top one are ankle straps. Is very similar to a thigh strap, except for it just connects to your ankles. And this makes it, and it can tighten in the middle right here. And this makes it so your legs are in control, and your partner could hold them, for example, as one unit rather than trying to, hold two legs, or for example. And then the thigh strap, just in general, is good for everyday use in a wheelchair, but you can also use it when you're having times of intimacy where if you don't want to worry about your legs falling out, or if it's uncomfortable or things like that. One of the things I think is really important is you just have to use whatever is available to you. And whether it's cushions, pillows, wedges, there's things I wouldn't be afraid. I know some people might be more conservative or shy. I wouldn't look so much at the label of something, for example, like a sex swing. I've actually used them before, and it actually took a lot of pressure off my limbs. Some people might be shy and they're like, oh, that sounds like, too risque, or it sounds like this or that. I wouldn't view it so much as like that. You just have to use whatever helps you adapt and makes you feel comfortable. So there's a lot of like sex furniture and cushions where that you could like lay on, and you could basically do like a lot of different things, but just laying in one position. So like wedges and like these couches and things like that, they allow you to be comfortable, but they also allow you to do multiple different things or positions without having to move much. Like I said, when I've used, which is basically like a Hoyer lift, if you think about it, a sex swing, that released so many pressure points from my limbs, and it was actually really comfortable. I get that it's different for every progression level or every disease, but my point is just use whatever you can, research, look around. You can go into sex shops. Don't be shy about that. I know some people might be, but again, it's all about focusing on what is most important to you, and do you want that intimate relationship with your partner? And at the end of the day, you're going to progress. So there's nothing you can do about that. But if you want to maintain an intimate relationship with your partner, don't be shy about adapting and pulling in whatever tools you need that will help that make more comfortable and just more fun. So I just wanted to show that. Oh, this one down here is basically like they call it a sex stool at the lower left. And what that is actually good is like, use your imagination. I don't want to get too explicit, but if you're having trouble sitting, for example, up on if you want to be on top, for example, this would help someone where you need a little bit more support, and it's like a bungee. This area is kind of bungee, so it would help you like maneuver more. But anyways, the point is just use what is around you. So for me, it's all about just removing your expectations and being really open to adaptation. And number one important is communicating your needs and what you want, and not being shy about that. And especially with disability, communicating like how your body works, how you need assistance, and just kind of working on your more of your self-acceptance and how you feel in the moment. I was going to bring in my husband, Jason, so he kind of talked just a little bit. I thought maybe it'd be good from a non-disabled partner for other disabled to hear their views on a relationship or being intimate, or how they might perceive that. This is Jason, my husband. And yeah, I thought I'd ask you, like, first of all, what was your perception when you saw me disabled, and just the whole beginning of the relationship?
Yeah, so we met in college, like she said. We both went to art school, and I had always seen her around. But at the time, she was walking with a cane. And I think from my perception, I didn't even notice. I saw that she had a cane, but all I really cared about was like, oh, there's this really hot girl who works in the, goes to school in the ID department, which I was also really interested in. So I came up with all these jokes that I used to stalk her. I would kind of make my way over to her department and just be kind of checking it out. She'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Which was funny because I was genuinely interested in what they were doing, but also I was like, "Oh, maybe I might run into Cam." But yeah, from my perception, I didn't even see the disability. Again, that doesn't mean that it wasn't there. I did not notice it, but I saw Cam first, and like I said, I mainly thought, "Oh wow, she's really cute." So yeah, I mean, I went out of my way to get to know her, and this will be a funny story for all you guys, but we did hang out a little bit, and Cam recognized that I was interested and rejected me up front. She literally asked me up front one day, "Is like, hey, do you like me?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "I'm not really looking for a relationship right now." So my friends joke that I'm the only person they know that's worked their way out of the friend zone. But again, point being is that yeah, I always only saw Cam for Cam, and I don't think that's, to me, it seems not extraordinary that someone would see me and be like, "Oh wow, it's so amazing that you're with someone who's disabled," because again, from my perspective, I never really saw the disability. As we've been married for quite a long time now, obviously it's become more in the forefront, but that question of like, do I see Cam first has never changed. Cam's always been my wife, my partner, my friend, and she happens to have a disability. And so I think that's how most people will see you when you're with your partners. They're just gonna see you. Like, yeah, obviously that's a factor, but that's not the distinguishing part of your relationship. Your relationship is a relationship. So
Yeah, and I think that's really important for disabled to hear, because I think a lot of us naturally we might feel like a burden from time to time, but overall we really shouldn't, because it really just is a relationship. And like you said, you didn't really view it as anything, and that's just important, I think, for disabled to hear, because I think we burden ourselves more with the feelings of maybe my partner isn't liking me as much, or maybe I can't date because I'm disabled, or oh, I've progressed over the years with my partner, so are they going to be interested in me? And I think sometimes that could maybe be hindering maybe your intimate life. For example, your husband may be reading that you're insecure, your husband or your wife may be reading that you're insecure, and maybe not being as forthcoming about it, or suggesting it. And maybe you're reading that as, oh, my partner's not interested in me anymore because I'm disabled or whatever. And so there's so much miscommunication in that way, instead of just talking about it. And I think you probably realize, like, oh, you're misunderstanding each other. So that's another reason why communication is so important, because you don't want to read and react to something that's not even happening. So maybe you're giving off the vibe you're not interested intimately, but on the inside you're thinking they're not interested, and you're burdening yourself with the feelings of you're no longer desirable or things like that. So it's just really important to just talk about how you're feeling emotionally through the progression of your disease, but also how you're progressing and how you might need more help, and how they view it. How do they view it? Are they reacting to your insecurity, or are they reacting to how you think you may not be able to do it anymore? And so it's just really important to just unite and make sure that they're not your enemy. They're someone that you want to bring in and just craft and this adaptive, intimate life that you guys can have together. So we went a little bit long. I wanted to open up to Q&A if you're ready, Sabine. And Jason can stay and also answer questions if you have any questions for him.
Well, one question from Harmony. It's not a question. She has just said that thanks again for a wonderful talk. Your comments about projecting confidence really hit home with me. I think this can apply in all aspects of our lives. The more we try to hide or feel shame because of our disability, then that could also actually make others feel pity for us or look at us differently than others. Yeah, that's for now. I don't know if there is anybody else who can ask any question or who may have any concerns, but I saw, Tara, that you posted a question in the chat that maybe if there are any links that Cam could share with us about those different instruments. or
So
this-
the thigh strap, that's from Sport Aid. You could buy that online. That just helps from day to day because our abductor muscles are weakened, so our legs kind of move out when we're in a wheelchair. So that one you can buy from Sport Aid, and it's great for, you know, just every day, like I said. Or you could also use it where it just kind of helps your partner hold your legs together. The ankle straps, that one I got from a sex shop, but that one looks, I like that one because it looks very neutral. I feel like a lot of sex shops, they have like very frilly or, but you know, again, don't, they look more like, I guess you could call them bondage straps for your ankles. I wouldn't be shy if they look like that. And again, it's about whatever human is going to. You could also use a TheraBand. I was thinking the other day, if you can't have access, just use a TheraBand. Just tie it not tight enough and make sure it's not too tight around your ankles, but not as much slack in between, so it keeps your ankles together and your legs together. For example, when you're in missionary position laying in your back, it's nice to have your legs together when they're not falling to the sides. I also use a lot of pillows. I'll stuff, you know, it's pretty funny if you just saw us. We got pillows around, we got pillows behind us, we got pillows stuffed under my left and right hip, you know, and it might look silly, but it's actually really comfortable. And especially if you're engaging in an intimate situation, you want to be comfortable, because if you're not comfortable, all your brain space is how uncomfortable you are and how much pain you are, and not being present in the moment. So the key is setting up first. Don't be shy about like, hey, we need to put a pillow here. Just make it like a, you know, fun little, I crack jokes all the time, what I call intermissions. I crack jokes when we're moving and transitioning from different positions. And it just kind of lightens the mood. And again, I don't think we have to take it so seriously. I think if we're being honest, it kind of looks funny in general, if you're disabled or not. So you just want to be comfortable, so your mind can be at ease, because that's when you're going to be the most present, and that's when you're going to enjoy yourself the most. For me, honestly, I didn't become, I mean, I've always been very, I've always felt intimacy was very important to me. But it wasn't really until I went into a wheelchair and I've become more progressed that I feel like I've connected with my own body way more than I was before I was disabled. And a lot of that is because I can't rely on my physicality. I have to rely on my brain, and I can control my brain. So what I do with my brain is I just completely relax myself. I remove all of the noise of how I think I should be, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. And I know what's most important is about being present. And sure, things look different, and especially as you progress, things, you know, morph and transform, and you need more help and you need more tools to do that. But I don't think we have to use those as limiters of why we can't be, you know, continual sexual and intimate and in relationships and dating. So, you know, like I said, it's really all in the brain. And like I said, it wasn't until I was more progressed that I became more connected with my body physically. And a lot of that, again, is because I can't move. I have to rely on everything. And it was through that I learned, you know, again, we're not trying to get too explicit here, but, you know, it wasn't up until then that I had the big O, and also learned how to be able to mentally do that without any intimacy. So you realize everything is in your brain. That's your largest sex organ. So just really focus on that. Don't look so much about what you don't have anymore or what's leaving you. Totally understand that. I go through that all the time. You know, you think about the past, you think about the future. I used to be able to do this. I look so much sexier when I could stand up and pose or arch my back or things like that. You know, I get all that. But at the end of the day, it's about being like, well, it is what it is. This is what I can do now. And this is how I'm going to adapt and create the world around it to be able to have a fulfilling life. Because just because you're disabled doesn't mean you can't have a fulfilling sexual life, doesn't mean you can't have a fulfilling marriage, a relationship, dating. And I think if we start with our own selves first, reminding ourselves that we are capable of being and doing all these things, I think it makes it a lot easier for the partner or dating if they can see that we're confident in ourselves.
To support Cam's point, by the way, even though Cam's often nervous before events or speaking or whatever it might be, even to social situations, she projects a lot of confidence. She'll tell me afterwards, it's like, oh man, I was so nervous I was during that. I was like, really? Because you were like the life of the party. So I don't know if that's like her just really good at faking it before you're making it, or just during those moments you really are just in the moment and enjoying yourself. But yeah, it really is like I could see how people are attracted to her because of the energy she puts out. And so I think that is a big part of it, is like people really do react to her, and again, the vibe. So I think that's a big part of people accepting you, because you feel like you're accepting them.
Yeah, it's really good hearing it from. Yeah, people usually accept what you put out. And like I said, the fake it till you make it. Jason doesn't get that. I'm actually quite introverted. He could never tell, or like doing speeches or whatever, that just a lot of anxiety or speaking and stuff like that. But there's an element of, again, what pushes me is I look at what I really want from life. And then I push myself out into that. And the fake it till you make it, it really does help. I'm feeling so nervous, but I'm going to push myself into this situation. Or, when I'm on a date and it gets to that time where I have to be intimate, for example, oh, of course you're going to have a lot of insecurities. Of course you're going to feel all that. That's just completely normal. But if you can fake it till you make it with that partner as much as you can, the more you do it, the more you realize, like, I am confident. You know what? I do have something to offer. And my partner really enjoys me. He or she loves to be with me, whether you're being physical or not. And so you have to, like, once you start seeing that and seeing how people respond to you, then that also helps build your confidence, and you realizing, like, yeah, this, GNE myopathy is difficult for me personally, but it doesn't have to be difficult. It shouldn't be difficult for everyone else. And that's what we have to teach people, is that there's nothing wrong with being disabled. However, my own experience or journey with it is my own, but that's not for how society should be viewing us. And how we do that is by living our life and kind of indirectly teaching society that, hey, the obvious thing, that we're still humans. We're very dateable. We're marriage material, boyfriend, girlfriend material. We're sex material. We can be all these things, even though in spite of being disabled. And that our disability also brings an important element of not only who we are, but also something important to, because that's who you are. It's a part of you. And you don't want to go through life hiding that with your partners or your friends or your family. And I think a lot of people respond to not knowing how to act or, whatever around someone who's disabled. And as soon as you're like, oh yeah, you just act like how you would around anyone else, they're like, oh yeah, no duh. And then they start acting as so. So I think it's just, yeah, self-acceptance is really important. And it's a lifelong journey too. Don't think that
Thank you.
you have to be self-accepting all the time. We all go through insecurities. So
Yeah, thank you, Cam. Thank you, Jason. That was a very interesting talk about in detail. But there is another question by Emily that she's interested in learning about the furniture pieces that Cam said are good for using in lots of positions. And yeah, she also thank you for so much of the information in this presentation.
oh, that was the question she's asking about it.
Yeah, she doesn't want to know more about it.
Is there a specific question? I'm going to share my screen. is there a specific question or? So a lot of these
Maybe.
sex furnitures, you can find them on Amazon. I mean, like everything. You can find them in obviously sex shops or online. So I would just Google. I've like these chase, there's a lot of these sex couches are like really well designed. There's like really cool modern colors and shapes. And so a lot of people probably won't even recognize that it was a sex couch or whatever. But the great thing about these is that they're narrow enough that, for example, if you're laying in it, there's a lot of different things you can do, like just laying in this position that your partner can do with you. You know, just kind of use your imagination or do some research, look up sex couches, and they'll give a lot of diagrams. And I think you just have to look at it as like a fun opportunity to like look for things. And important to point out, all these things are designed for non-disabled. So I know we think like, oh, I don't have to use the tool because that makes me like nerdy or whatever it may be, or it's not the way sex should look. But like all these things are designed for non-disabled. So if they're designed for non-disabled, then you know, why not for disabled? And wedges really help. Anything, pillows, anything you can use to help facilitate what your goals are, you should use. And just get creative. Like I said, you can just get things around your house too. And just figure out what works for you. That a lot of our time is spent on that, figuring out what things work for us in terms of when my condition is progressing.
Yeah, that's true. And it's all about adaptability. Thank you so much, Kam. Any more questions if we have? I can't see in Q&A right now if there is anybody else who might want to ask something again.
I would like to ask a question from Jason. Kam told us all about the implements and the furniture pieces and how it's, you know, her experience. Can you share your experience with us?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, obviously, I would say from my experience, I'm motivated. So, you know, for the most part, like I said, you know, we want to have a good time. Obviously there's a learning process and there's experimentation that needs to happen, but because, like I said, we both want to have that shared experience, you know, that's just part of the process. So I think it's very similar in terms of like what I was saying in terms of seeing disability or not. It's like, yeah, I know that it's there, but that's not the main factor. It's just like when you're being intimate. It's like, yeah, obviously it's there, but that's not discouraging at all, because again, I'm focusing on our relationship. I'm focusing on our shared experience. So yes, we do have to do a lot of work or experimentation in terms of figuring out those details. But again, that's not what I'm walking away with. That's not what I'm recalling. That's not my perception of the experience. So I think very much, if you, like Kam said before, if you're engaging in intimacy with someone, it's because they want to be there. You know, you don't have to worry about like, oh, am I inconveniencing them, or it's like, is it just one too many hurdles? I think they're going to be happy to be there. So you just kind of like go with the flow, and hopefully they have a sense of humor. But yeah, like I said, it is kind of funny. But yeah, like I said, I don't think you really need to worry about someone who's already there with you, someone who's already your partner, not having a good time. I'm sure you're gonna have a good time. But I also heard Kam talk about, at least from my desire, which I think is true for a lot of people, it's like, I'm really only having a good time if she's having a good time. If it's one-sided, kind of like, what's the point? It means I want it to be mutual. So yeah, of course, like I said, I think it comes back to that, like, yeah, we both have the same goal. We both want the same things. How we get there is going to be different for everyone, but you know, you'll get there.
Yeah, and by funny, he doesn't mean funny like looking, he just means the experience is funny. Sometimes when we're in situations or trying to like, okay, I want to do this, you know, and my, for example, my neck is progressed, so I have to discovered new ways to do things that I've done before, you know, when we were being intimate. But, you know, I kind of crack a lot of jokes, and it's kind of funny. I make jokes and make Jason laugh while we're transitioning, which adds a lot of levity to the situation. But I think with couples, I can only imagine how, especially if you're not talking, there's a lot of misunderstanding on both sides. And I'm sure that from the disabled side, they're just thinking, you know, my husband, he can't be really attracted to me anymore. Oh, my wife, I can't do, you know, both male and female have different, when you're disabled, there's different things that maybe bother us that we can't do long anymore that are gender stereotypes. So for the man, they have very specific, disabled man, they may have specific things where they feel very insecure, where they feel they should be, you know, at the helm of this or that. But, you know, again, it's really about number one is removing all imagery of what you think something should look like. And two, absolutely communicate. You have to communicate. Otherwise, you're affecting your relationship by not doing so, and maybe negatively so, and misunderstanding each other. And then both of you are going without having, you know, that intimacy or that close relationship because you feel like the other side doesn't desire you anymore because of your disability or this or that. So, and that's probably not so. Probably what's happening is miscommunication.
Yeah, as you said, it's communication is the key. So yeah, we have another question at the panel. What's your favorite position and why? Is the sex couch wide enough for your legs to collapse?
I know who's asking this. Of course, she would ask this. Okay, so what, I'm sorry, could you ask that again? What's your, okay. Oh, I see.
Yeah. What's your
couch
favorite
is-
position and why? And is the
Favorite
sex couch wide
position,
enough? Yeah.
Okay, is doggy. Can I say that? Is that okay to say that? How do you say, is there a more formal way of saying that word?
There is.
That is a little bit more difficult, but I can still do it. It takes more involvement. And one way I've adapted, if you would like to know, is if I can get myself to the floor, like I'll sit on the couch, for example, and then I'll kind of like lay back and roll onto my stomach and then drop my knees to the floor where I can use the couch to support my upper body and still do that position. I can still do it in the bed too as well. You just need a lot of, for me, I need a lot of assistance, but I was able to do that position for a very long time, even with GNE and myopathy. I think what's graduated that's been more common is obviously missionary is more easier, and especially with the straps that can kind of hold your legs for you. And again, we have these preconceptions of which position is we have to do or which position is sexier. But you know, this forces you with the progressive disease, forces you to get creative and try new things, try new positions that you might not have thought of. And you realize, oh, that actually feels really good. So like, you know, if you're on your back, you're moving both your knees to your left, so they're laying flat to the left of you or to the right of you. And then your partner doesn't have to hold your legs up or things like that. The sex couch. So for that one, for example, is great for missionary where you're like sitting and comfortable on a couch, and then your partner would hold your legs so your legs don't fall out. When you want your legs down, he would just put them down on the cushion in front of you. But also for me, the amount of my hip is tilted, the amount I can tilt it, the more you tilt it, when I had more hip abductor strength, my legs wouldn't fall out as much. So that's like a tip. If you just have to tilt your hip when you're on your back a lot, so your legs kind of, the gravity kind of pushes your legs back and you can kind of hold your legs using gravity, for example. But what's great with the sex couch is it's narrow enough that your partner can straddle you in terms of like, if you want to do missionary, if you want to do, you know, oral, different positions, you don't have to move much. And so if you're having pain and stuff like that, you can get creative with a lot of things to do on like a sex couch that's cushioned and very comfortable. And again, you can kind of build something like that with pillows on your bed too, if you don't have the money to buy a couch like that. So, which we don't have one ourselves, but I've seen them and I know how they work. So I figured that would be something that, you know, and everyone's different. Again, everyone's different. What will help with them. So you have to just figure out what's going to work best for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kam. Is there any more questions?
This is Rachel, the Director of Operations. I would just like to thank all our participants, Sabine and Cam and Tara. It's really nice to have so much community involvement in these presentations. And next week, we have a scientific one with Dr. Sudha Bhattacharya starting at 9 a.m. Pacific. And again, Cam and Jason, thank you so much for your being very open and honest with your experiences and sharing that with the community.
And thank you for having us.
And Valini says, brilliant, thanks, Cam. I appreciate your advice and honesty. It's so good to be able to discuss this. So I think, with that, unless anybody has something that they would like to add, I think we will say thank you again and goodbye. And everybody enjoy your Sunday. This will be on the NDF website this week. So, if anybody wants to review it and has any questions, Cam, I assume if I forward you any questions, you will be available to answer?
Absolutely, I can, yes.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. And with that, we will say goodbye.